Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had been raised by Kakashi his entire life and how would raising Naruto change Kakashi's life as well? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 14, Dog Boy and Bug Boy. For the next couple of weeks Naruto got used to his new life in school. He was learning some neat things although he was still bored at times. Sometimes Iruka would yell at him and Shikamaru because they fell asleep, plus the fact that he was getting a reputation. Well, actually it was a couple. One was when after a week a string of mysterious pranks started to plague the school. Someone put dye in the teachers' tea and coffee in their teachers' lounge, making all the teachers have black or green mouths and tongues for the day. Then there was the incident when had set up shaving cream bombs of some sort, and then there was the day smoke bombs went off at random intervals throughout the day. No one was sure who was the culprit and the teachers had decided to catch whoever it was in the act. That was how they caught Naruto after school, planting glue on all the chairs of the teachers. Iruka had been disappointed in Naruto, and they had a talk with his father, who was 2 hours late for the meeting of course. Kakashi said he would punish Naruto, although Iruka figured from the attitude that Kakashi actually thought it was kind of funny and would most likely just increase Naruto's training at home. They also made Naruto apologize to the entire school, although Neji, who was a year ahead, had to admit the fact that Naruto managed to get all of that done and not get caught until now was surprising, but he never would admit it. He didn't even say that he knew Naruto since no one asked him, which he was thankful for. Naruto was also known for being the only one that could keep up with the Uchiha prodigy as well. The two of them competed all the time, races, sparring matches, and anything else they could do. Although they acted a bit hostile towards the other, it was just their way. Besides, Naruto enjoyed having someone that made him push himself. He figured the harder he worked the faster he could make Hokage one day. But there was one fact that had escaped Naruto during that time, and that was because he was the only one that rivaled Sasuke. It made him more noticeable, especially to certain members of the female class. Although the Sasuke fangirls were numerous, Naruto had a smaller following as well. If he wasn't lazy in class or pulled pranks he would have gotten more, but there were other things that made certain girls like him. First was the fact that he always wore a mask, making him kind of mysterious in a way. No one knew what he looked like, and that curiosity was alluring to some of them. Another was the fact that Naruto, once you got to know him, was a very nice guy. Sasuke would always just blow the girls off, and at times when he was really annoyed might say something hurtful just so he could get some peace and quiet. Naruto, on the other hand, always would talk to the girls that went up to him. That made him much more approachable. The thing was, he had no idea that the girls liked him in that way. He just thought they were being friendly and was just trying to make new friends. This of course was misread by the girls that he was interested in them, and of course would lead to some trouble here and there, mainly young girls getting into fights over who was better, Naruto or Sasuke, and who liked the boy more. It also kind of made Hinata a bit awkward. Although she would have gladly been placed in the Naruto fangirl side of things, she was also Naruto's best friend and she was always close to the boy. This led to some jealousy with some other girls over how close Hinata was with him. Sakura was getting a little confused. She liked Sasuke, but Naruto was so nice to her all the time as well, so she had no idea which boy was better. Ino thankfully was only after Sasuke, and helped keep the three girls together in tougher times. She had no rivalry with Hinata, and Sakura hadn't made her intentions clear, so to Ino that meant that none of them were a threat to her and her Sasuke-kun. But there were a couple of people that Naruto was curious about. Mainly was the Shino kid that always wore a heavy coat all the time. He always seemed to be alone, and Naruto remembered how that was like. The other was Kiba, who was a loudmouth show-off, which meant Naruto was starting to like the guy. Plus, when Naruto had been caught as the Academy Gremlin, as the mysterious prankster had been called, he had laughed so hard and gave Naruto a large smile. Kiba always seemed to enjoy his pranks the most, and he was thinking of asking the boy if he would be his friend as well. But first he waited for recess to come around. It took forever for the bell to ring, and usually Naruto would be rushing towards the door, but this time he held back, watching where Shino went. He followed the other boy and was confused when he walked to the bushes and knelt down. He seemed to be doing something, but Naruto couldn't guess what it was. He waited, but patience was always one of the things that Naruto had trouble with. Naruto walked up behind him, looking over his shoulder, but he couldn't guess at what the boy was doing. "Hey there, what ya doing, Shino, right?" He only got silence, but the boy did turn to him slightly with a raised eyebrow. Naruto waited, then frowned. Oh come on, I just wanted to know, is that so much to ask? Shino looked at him for a moment before moving slightly to the left and pointed. Naruto saw a small insect that was crawling on the branches. He wasn't sure why the boy was interested in it, although he did admit it was kind of cool with the red and black markings. Okay, so what, you want to keep it or something? For breeding, the boy finally spoke and Naruto turned to face him, surprised he managed to get him to talk. Normally Shino only talked when Iruka asked him a question in class and he had to answer. Naruto of course took this as a victory in getting the strange boy to finally open up a little. Cool, so you collect bugs and stuff for that? He got a nod from the boy and Naruto went back to looking at the bug. Nice, although I noticed you liked bugs, you always been like that. Again, Shino raised an eyebrow. It's the way of my clan, we raise and control bugs as part of our fighting style. That was the longest answer that Naruto had ever heard him give. For a while he figured the boy was just the quiet type, but when you talked about bugs, that was when he seemed to talk a bit more. So, Naruto asked him all about his clan and Shino answered. For Shino, he had never met anyone who was interested in his clan. Most of the time he hardly went outside of the clan compound because a lot of people were uneasy around them. But Naruto seemed to be genuinely interested and wasn't freaked out by anything. When Naruto asked what exactly they did with bugs, he showed the masked boy a few of them that he had on him by commanding them to crawl out of his coat. He explained how they would be used to attack an opponent by draining their chakra and other things. Naruto, who had first-hand experience with chakra exhaustion on many times, knew firsthand how bad that could be. His respect for bugs went up a notch and made a mental note not to piss off any of the bug users in the future. Despite things, Shino was having a nice time. No one had ever talked to him like this before. He knew that his social skills weren't exactly that great, but it seemed that Naruto listened well, which was odd given how many times the boy slept during class. Hey Shino, you want to meet my other friends? Naruto asked the boy, and he could see some kind of hesitation, or at least what Naruto assumed was, the boy was very good at keeping his expression blank a lot. The only thing Naruto could pick up was slight body movements and his eyebrows. He couldn't even see his eyes, and the lower half of his face was covered by his jacket. Oh come on, they'll like you if you just open up a bit. Naruto wasn't going to give up, and he could see that Shino was thinking about it, so he decided to give him an extra push, that being grabbing his sleeve and dragging the taller boy with him. Come on, just give it a shot already. Naruto dragged the boy across the yard over to where his friends were. They were talking when they noticed Naruto dragging some poor boy with him. Hey guys, you mind if Shino here joins us? Whatever, Shikamaru said with a shrug, and there were no other real objections. Cool, Shino, that's Shikamaru, Koji, Ino, Sakura-chan, Hinata-chan. Guys, this is Shino. He doesn't say much at first, but he's a nice guy, and get this, he can talk to bugs and stuff and make them do things. Naruto saw varying expressions. Ino didn't like bugs that much, and always did think that Shino was a bit on the creepy side, that he never talked, and with those black sunglasses you couldn't tell where he was looking. Sakura tilted her head, wondering how you could talk to bugs, let alone making them do things. Shikamaru looked over with a raised eyebrow, and Koji just kept on eating. Hinata, however, because of her place in her clan, knew all about the prominent clans of the village, and she got up to him and gave a small bow. Hello Shino-kun, you're part of the Aburame clan. My father has spoken highly of your clan and their abilities. Shino nodded his head. You are the heiress of the Hyuga clan. My clan has respect for yours, as my father said you are to be trusted. Wow, that's the most I've heard him talk in like forever. Ino muttered to Sakura, who tried not to giggle. Would you like to join us then? Hinata asked, and Shino looked around and nodded his head as he sat down with them. It felt good for Shino to feel being accepted inside the grouping. Their clan over the years had been inspired by their insects and their collective. Belonging to a group and being a productive member of that group was one of the things their clan tried to do. First, they viewed their clan as the first collective, and then also that of Konoha, but Shino had no other grouping that he felt like he was a part of outside of this clan, so this small grouping was nice to him. As he got to know the others, he started to analyze the new grouping that he hoped to be accepted into. Shikamaru seemed lazy, but he had seen the boy always answered the questions when he was asked, and as far as he had observed, he had never lost to a game of shogi he had played with anyone. That meant there were hidden depths to the boy that he was hiding. Koji, although looked physically unfit, Shino had seen him hit the wooden targets harder than the other boys. Although he seemed to have self-image problems, he was a very loyal person. Ino was loud and brash, but she too was loyal to her friends and protective of them. She also wasn't afraid to be herself or speak her mind. Her friend Sakura seemed nice and intelligent but seemed to second-guess herself a lot. It was like with Hinata, she was kind to a fault really, but she was a very warm person. And then there was Naruto, who Shino was still trying to pin down. At one moment he was hyperactive, loud, and acted very childish, but at other times he was the complete opposite. Was he bipolar or something, or was there just more to him? Plus, one other thing, his insects felt something different about him. He asked, but they couldn't tell him why, only that Naruto was more than what he seemed. Shino looked at Naruto as he was fooling around, making Ino angry and was getting yelled at. "Who are you, Naruto Hatake, and what is it about you that makes you so different?" After school. Naruto's next person on his list was Kiba. He found Kiba after school waiting around. He walked over to him and waved, "Hey there, Kiba." He looked over and grinned, "Hey Naruto, you come up with anything new for class?" "I'm waiting for things to cool off a bit. I really don't want to go through what my dad did for the weekend after that meeting with Iruka-sensei." Kiba raised an eyebrow. "Why, what did he do?" "One day full training with Uncle Guy and the next with Auntie Anko." Naruto was actually sore for a day after that and he could hardly move. Kiba didn't understand what was go bad about that, although he didn't know who those people were, so he just laughed a bit. "Come on, what's so bad about that? Are you kidding? Their training is insane. Guy likes to do laps around the entire village on his hands, and that's just his personal training. You even want to know what he had me do? Then there's Anko, and she's crazy." Kiba blinked for a moment. He wasn't sure if Naruto was exaggerating, but from the looks of the masked blonde, he wasn't so sure. "So, what's this Anko like then?" Naruto made a face at him. "First time she babysat me, she tied me up to a chair. She likes to use these snake-styles ninja stuff and likes to scare the crap out of people. I think she said she was thinking of going into some training to get into the torture and information extraction section." That made Kiba's eye twitched, and for a moment his older sister didn't look so bad in comparison. Sure, his older sister gave him some grief now and then, but at least she wasn't into torture, even though Kiba figured she could have a shot at it, so he only shook his head in sympathy for Naruto. He couldn't blame the shorter boy for letting things cool off. It was too bad. He really enjoyed the pranks Naruto did. They were the high boy of the day for him at times. "Anyway, tomorrow me, Shikamaru and Koji are going to the park. I'm hoping Shino will come too. You want to come with us, Kiba?" Kiba shrugged. He was still trying to make some friends, and even though he didn't like Naruto much at first, he had to admit he was starting to like the guy. He was unpredictable and he guessed he could do worse. "Well, that sounds okay, but my sister wants me to do some work with the dogs later." "So why me? We hardly say much to each other, well, besides some insults and stuff." But Kiba said it with a grin, since he and Naruto always seemed to try and push each other's buttons, especially during the sparring matches, although Kiba was still sore that he only got in one win and had a suspicion that Naruto had let him win that time anyway. Naruto just shrugged. "Why not? I mean, yeah, you're an ass sometimes, but I like you." "I'm an ass? Listen here, shorty, I'm not the one that starts most of the fights." "Oh yeah, and I'm not short. I just haven't hit my growth spurt yet." Kiba smirked at him. "You'll be lucky to reach 5 feet at the rate it's going." Naruto scowled at him and was about to give a retort when a woman's voice yelled out, and Kiba suddenly stiffened and had a look on his face that Naruto was pretty sure that was the same look on his face whenever Anko gets into one of her moods and he's in mortal danger. He looked over to see a girl a few years older with the same markings on her face, same hair, only in a long ponytail, with an annoyed look on her face. "What do you want? I thought Mom was coming by," Kiba asked. The older girl put her hands on her hips and glared at him. "Mom's not coming, she got held up, and don't talk to me like that, you little brat." That was when she noticed Naruto and looked at the boy with an odd look. Mainly it was because she never seen a boy with a mask on like that before, and she was wondering what was going on as she had seen the two arguing about something. "Hey kid, is my idiot little brother bugging you?" she asked. "You're Kiba's sister?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, my name is Hana Inyazuka." Naruto looked at her for a second before saying something. "Wait, your name is Hana? Cool, my best friend's mom has the same name. Is it a popular name or something, or just for pretty girls?" Hana wasn't sure to be angry at being compared to someone's mother or flattered that he said she was pretty. Naruto then gave a small bow with his head. Well, it's nice to meet you, Hana-san. Kiba always said that his big sister was young and pretty, but he never said how pretty. Now Hana was smiling while Kiba was wondering what the hell was going on. He never said anything of the sort. Hell, he was sure he said the complete opposite a few times. Well, nice to know that my little brother isn't a total pain then. Who are you anyway? Name's Naruto Hatake, and I was wondering if Kiba could play with us at the park tomorrow, that is if that's okay. Hana thought about it for a moment and then shrugged. Well, okay then, it's nothing big that I can't handle. I'm glad that Kiba has at least a few friends with some manners. Kiba, I'll see you in a bit. I got to go and drop something off and I'll be right back, so make some plans with Naruto here. Kiba watched his big sister leave, and when he was sure she was out of earshot he quickly grabbed Naruto by the front of his shirt. What the hell was that, man? I mean, I never said that, and were you trying to make a pass at my sister of all people? Naruto wrenched his hand off. Get off me. First, hell no, she's way too old for me and she looks and acts too much like Anko, and I'm not suicidal. Secondly, I learned fast that in order not to piss off women like that you got to compliment them, be really nice and respectful, and then throw in some compliments and make sure you say something about them or they themselves are pretty. And that works? Kiba asked. You got the time off, didn't you? Naruto smirked under his mask, making Kiba laugh a bit, and asked him where he learned that from. My dad actually has some good advice. I use it on Anko when she's got that killer look in her eyes. Well, that and promise her dango that oddly works better with her. Kiba just shook his head at it all. It seemed that Naruto and his whole family was weird, but he did get him out of working with his big sister later, and he might as well play with the guys. Besides, he needed some guys to hang out with, and he might like these guys given half a chance. Well, that and they were the only interesting ones he could think of, and there was no way in hell he would hang out with that Uchiha kid. Kiba thought of him as a stuck-up jerk anyway. Hyuga compound. Hana Hyuga had been dealing with the usual things that the wife of the clan had usually dealt with, such as dealing with problems with the main or branch members or even between the two. Plus, there was dealing with other clans, merchants, council members, as well as social functions. But lately she had been trying to deal with them, but she had been getting lots of headaches lately. At first, she thought they were just from stress, but something had happened when she had tried to use her bloodline. She had received blinding pain in her head and behind her eyes. She deactivated them quickly, but she was dizzy and a throbbing pain for the rest of the day. That was when she had gone to the hospital, and for the entire day she had been wondering what was going on with her. Unfortunately, what they told her had left her in a state of shock for the rest of the day. She had walked back home and just wanted to see her little girls. She had hugged her daughters close and had been avoiding everyone else all day because she was worried that she might just break down. So, there she was at the moment in her private quarters, just sitting down with the shades because of the headache direct sunlight gave her eyes. She had been thinking all the time and she just didn't know what she could do. She heard the door open, and for the first time in a long time she had a harshness to her tone. I said I wanted to be left alone. What is wrong? Said the voice of her husband, and Hana nearly jumped as she turned around, surprised to see him closing the door and walking over to her. My love, I didn't know it was you. He walked over to her and sat down across from her and took her hands. He looked her in the eyes and she could see the worry in them. He only ever allowed that mask he wore to fall off between them when they were alone. I will ask again, what is wrong? It's nothing. My love, I know you've been tired lately, you have had headaches a lot and you can't sleep well at night. And I know that you went to the hospital this morning as well, and you are eating less than you normally do. So please don't insult me. You know I love you more than anything, so please tell me what's wrong, he pleaded with her. Her eyes dropped and she shut her eyes. She couldn't look him in the face. How could she look him in the face with this news? It was tearing her apart inside, and she finally let the tears fall. She still couldn't believe this was happening. She just wanted this to be a bad dream and let it be over with already, to wake up and have it all just some nightmare. She took a calming breath before she could speak what the doctors told her. I have bloodline poisoning. Hayashi felt like someone had just hit him in the gut with a sledgehammer. He knew of that every person with a bloodline trait that illness. Sometimes there was a genetic anomaly and the bloodline actually turned on the person like a cancer. It was very hard to treat and had to be treated quickly, because if it reached a certain level then it became terminal. How far along is it? He was surprised at how soft and weak his own voice sounded. There was no commanding presence in it anymore, there was no strength in it, it sounded totally alien to his own ears. She looked up into his eyes hoping for some strength for this. They don't know yet. I have to go back for more in-depth examination and then they'll start the treatments and see how it goes. If things get too bad, they might have to take out my eyes in order to save my life. She started to tremble then. For a Hyuga there was no worse fate than to lose your eyes. You would become pitied by everyone in the clan, and that kind of weakness was almost like a shame that you couldn't run away from. Some who had lost their eyes in battle ended up taking their own life than live with the shame. And it was hard to get new eyes implanted for their clan. Their eyes were keyed to them in ways that made it difficult, like they were bonded to the person. Even a Hyuga giving their eyes to another ran a risk of being rejected. Then Hana felt the arms of her husband engulf her and she pulled him close, burying her face into her husband. I'm so scared, Hayashi-kun. I know, Hana-chan, I know, but we must have hope. You're strong and I know you can beat this, he said softly to her, stroking her long hair. He wanted to believe that as well. She was the best part of his life, and if she died, he wasn't sure what he would do without her. He didn't want to think about that, as he held his wife as she softly sobbed against him. He prayed for the first time in a long time for his wife. They would wait and see what would happen. There was no need to worry everyone, especially the children. Chapter 15, Life and Times of Naruto. Kakashi Hatake was just leaving the Hokage Tower and heading home. He was wondering how Naruto's day went, and he had to admit being a father sure changed him in some ways. Okay, so maybe not much on the outside, but he cared deeply for the boy and would do anything to protect him and see him raised to be one of the best ninja this village had ever seen. He smiled at the thought of what would happen in the future if Naruto's name became well known like his and his father's. He cast a glance at the face of the fourth on the mountain and wondered if he was doing his old teacher proud with how he was raising Naruto. He hoped so, and his mind turned to what else he could teach Naruto. His chakra control was getting better, but it still sucked. His taijutsu was getting better with the style that he was teaching him, but Naruto seemed to have a gift for making up moves on the fly. They weren't pretty, but they were totally chaotic and unpredictable. With some polish he might turn out pretty good. He wasn't sure about how well Naruto would be with ninjutsu, and with his lack of chakra control he got the feeling that his son would be horrible at genjutsu. So maybe focusing on the first two and letting Naruto learn how to find and dispel them would be best. He'd see how well he would do when his class got into transformations next year. But he was glad to see his son making some new friends. The Kiba kid was a lot like Naruto in ways, and the two were always pushing the other, but in a rival and friendly manner that made him remind him of his own relationship with Obito had been. The other boy, Shino, was the quiet type but seemed okay, and then there was something else he was noticing and made him grin under his mask. Apparently, Naruto was starting to get a small fan club of girls. It reminded Kakashi of his own youth, although looking back on it he wouldn't have ignored all those girls. Honestly, what the hell had he been thinking? He could have had any girl he wanted, but he had been too stuck up and focused to just relax and have fun like Obito had tried to get him to do all the time. Although when he went to pick up Naruto, he had noticed a few girls giggling as they were watching his son, although his son seemed to be a bit too dense to notice. Although Naruto did seem to have a small crush on the pink-haired friend of his, and she seemed to have a bit of on herself, although he also noticed how Hinata also was. Two girls area already after you, Naruto, you are so lucky and yet so screwed at the same time. He giggled a little perversely at what his boy would be later on in life. Although when puberty set in, he would have to have a one-on-one talk with him, maybe let him read a few parts of his books for him to know how to treat a girl if he got that far. It sure would have helped with his first time. That had been awkward to say the least, but at least now he knew a lot of good tricks. Yo, Kakashi. He turned to see Asuma, one of the Hokage's sons, walking up to him. Hey, what's up? Kakashi asked as he stopped in his place. We were wondering if you wanted to have a poker game tonight. I'm trying to round up a few more jonins for it. Asuma asked him while digging for one of his cigarettes. Kakashi thought about it. Usually the jonins would get together for things like this from time to time. It was a nice way to get to know the new guys, catch up with others and share good stories. Sometimes they went to a certain bar to hang out or pay tribute to fallen friends as well. They hadn't done that in about a month and he felt the need to relax a bit. Sure, whose turn is it? Kakashi was mentally listing the current jonins and trying to remember the order. He had missed the last two times, so that would be He saw Asuma's smirk and he suddenly realized that Asuma had planned this out. "Tonight, at 7 good for you?" Asuma asked, still smirking. He sighed and nodded his head. "Yeah, why not? Good, cause I've been wanting to meet this kid of yours who my old man seems to like so much." Asuma smirked at him. He had never actually met Naruto yet, which was odd given how his dad liked him so much. Although it didn't help that he and his father were still having troubles with each other. As a ninja and Hokage they worked well together, but as father and son things just didn't work out as smooth. At least his relationship with his brother wasn't as bad, although still tense at times. Kakashi nodded his head as he pulled out his book as he walked on back to his place. It certain would be an interesting night, that's for sure. He hadn't had anyone join him over at his new place since Naruto was born. He had always been too busy when Naruto was younger, and then missions always got in the way as well. He wondered what Naruto would make of them, although he hoped that Ebisu guy wasn't coming. Kakashi respected his abilities as a ninja and a special jonin that taught ninjas, but the guy was way too rigid. He just reminded Kakashi too much of how he was younger. He also hoped Guy wouldn't show up. The last time they were together he got it into his head to challenge him to a drinking contest. He won it, although he paid for it the next morning, and he really didn't like to tell Naruto that he was just sick and not hungover. He really didn't like doing that to his own son and swore off drinking competitions until he was a bit older to understand. Later that night Kakashi set up the table, got the snacks and a few drinks. He had finished helping Naruto with some homework and he seemed excited to see some new faces. He had taken off his combat jacket that everyone got at Chunin level and was just in a black t-shirt. He heard the door suddenly bang open, and that would only mean one of two people. "Worship me all, for the goddess of games has arrived," Anko called out as she marked right in throwing her coat onto a chair. Behind her was a slightly older woman in civilian clothing with long dark hair and strange yet captivating red eyes. "Are you sure it's okay for me to be here, Anko? I'm still a Chunin after all," the woman asked. "Kurane, you're my friend and you'll make Jonin one day like me, so think of this as meeting your future peers." Anko walked into the living room, seeing Kakashi there with a questioning look on his face. She just gave him one of her wide grins. "Hey there, Kakashi, hope you don't mind me bringing a friend along." Kakashi just shrugged his shoulders. "I don't mind, it's my house so my rules." "Great, this is Kurane Ui. So, then where's the brat?" Anko looked around only to be suddenly hit by a yellow, black, and orange blur. "Auntie Anko." "Hey there Naruto, how is school going?" Anko smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. Kurane was smirking at the scene. She had known Anko for years and she never seen her like this. She rarely showed that much affection, and the two were actually cute together. She noticed Kakashi giving one of his closed-eye smiles. A small giggle escaped her, but she stopped as soon as Anko gave her the evil eye for it. Naruto looked up at the lady and tilted his head. "Hey, who is the pretty lady?" Kurane knelt down to the boy, smiling. "My name is Kurane Ui and you must be little Naruto that Anko told me about. It's nice to meet you." "Thanks, it's nice to meet you too." Then Naruto looked at her eyes for a moment. "Hey, how come your eyes look kind of like the one eye my dad has? Are you part Uchiha or something?" Kurane stood up surprised by that and looked to see Anko and Kakashi giving her the same look. "You know, now that you mention it, the resemblance is there," Kakashi said. Anko nodded her head. "You ever trace back your family tree, Kurane?" She gave them both dirty looks, knowing they were just messing with her. A knock came at the door and it opened up, and a very loud and very familiar voice yelled out to them. "Hello. Kakashi, my rival, we're here, and with the power of youth I vow to defeat you in poker, or I'll do 5,000 vertical push-ups." Naruto of course went to meet his uncle Guy and hugged him. "Naruto-kun, how are you? Had the power of youth see you through school?" "You know it, Uncle Guy, believe it." He gave him a thumbs up and Kakashi shuddered at that. "Guy. What have I told you about poisoning my son's mind with that crap?" Kakashi yelled at the green-clad ninja. Apparently even off-duty he still wore that bright green jumpsuit. He noticed the other two men with him were Asuma and one of the new special Jonins. He had short brown hair, a bandana on his head, and was chewing on what looked like a senbon needle. He tried to run through the list of names in his head and came up with Genma Shiranui. They greeted everyone and soon after got things rolling. They took their seats as they started to talk about the usual things, missions, gossip, and such. Naruto was seated next to his dad as he watched and was trying to figure out the game. That is after they calmed Guy down about ruining Naruto's youthful spirit. And so the poker night started off. They traded a few stories and talked about what was going on, although they had to keep the more graphic parts toned down since Naruto was there, even though he was begging to hear all the cool ninja stories as he called them. When Naruto found out that Asuma was the Hokage's son, he asked him if beards and smoking ran in the family. That caused Asuma to laugh a bit, and he guessed it did, although his older brother had to stop since his wife did just have a baby. Kurane seemed a little intimidated by being in a group of people like this, especially since Guy, Asuma, and Kakashi were full Jonins, which was the highest rank to gain other than Hokage. But after a drink and some coaxing from Anko, she managed to loosen up a bit, and she had to admit the interactions between Kakashi, Guy, Naruto, and Anko made for some very entertaining evening. At one point in the game, Asuma looked at Kakashi as he was looking at the cards he was given. "Hey, how come you got to wear that mask, Kakashi? It's not fair for the rest of us." "Consider it the ultimate poker face," he smirked behind it. "I still think he's cheating by counting the cards," Genma said, checking his cards to make sure they weren't marked as well. "Besides, how do we know the kid isn't cheating for you? Just because you suck at this doesn't mean you can blame Naruto." Anko grinned and threw in a few chips. "What, are you his mother?" Genma asked her as she gave him a glare, earning him one from Naruto as well. Kakashi saw this and he didn't like sore losers, and he let one of his hands drop out of sight of the board and hang on his side. Luckily Naruto noticed this. Then he saw his dad starting to give him one-handed signs. One of the things his dad taught him was sign language, with both one and two hands. Naruto grinned under his mask as he made an excuse to get a drink of water. He returned later and gave his dad a wink, knowing he was ready. The game continued until Kakashi accidentally dropped one of his chips. "Naruto, can you get that chip for me? I don't trust taking my eyes off my cards in a room full of ninjas." Naruto nodded his head. "Sure thing, Dad." He went under the table and got the chip, but also pulled out a tube of industrial strength glue. He went over to Genma and got ready. "Genma-san, can you raise your foot? It's wedge under it." "No, the other one." "Thank you." After gluing both feet to the floor, Naruto gave back the chip to his dad and made an excuse to go to the bathroom. Genma was closer to the kitchen and asked him to get some new drinks since they were running low. After a little convincing, he signed and went to get up. That's when his feet stayed in place, making him fall flat onto his back. He swore as he nearly swallowed his senbon needle and looked to see how his feet were now glued to the floor. He glared at Kakashi. "You bastard, you and your boy did this when he was under the table." Kakashi gave an innocent look. "Why, whatever do you mean?" At this, Anko had lost it and was laughing so hard she resting her head on the table, pounding on it. Kurane was trying not to and hiding a hand over her mouth, and Asuma didn't care. It was hilarious. After everything calmed down and Kakashi loaned Genma some spare shoes, saying he would give him his originals when he managed to pry them off the floor later, the game continued. Naruto also returned and he could see Genma giving him dirty looks, but there was no malice in them. Naruto, however, was getting bored. "I don't get it, why is this game so much fun? It looks so easy, all you got to do is match up the cards, don't you?" "It takes a bit more than that," Asuma said as he tried to go for a cigarette but got yet another warning from Kakashi. He didn't allow smoking in his house if Naruto was there, besides his son was short enough as it was and didn't need to be any shorter. That earned him a dirty look from Naruto as his height was a sore subject for him. "Well, it looks too easy for me." Naruto crossed his arms. "Oh really?" Anko said and looked to Kakashi. "Why don't you let him join in and show the little chibi how hard the game is?" "I'm not a chibi." Kakashi had enough chips as it was and put a third of his into a new pile as Naruto smiled and went to get a chair. "Kakashi, how can you let a child play poker?" Guy said, standing up and pointing at him. "This is most unyouthful. It's bad enough he learns this game, but to let him play, what kind of father are you?" "Huh? Sorry, did you say something, Guy?" Kakashi asked in a blank stare, and Guy face faulted at that. Naruto returned and they dealt him in. After all, what were the odds of Naruto staying in longer than 10 minutes? An hour later, Naruto somehow had amassed most of the chips. Asuma just couldn't believe the little kid was this good, and what was worse, the boy still didn't understand all the rules as he asked now and then if his hand was good or not, and it usually was good. The others just couldn't believe his luck, and Kakashi was starting to plan that as soon as Naruto was old enough, he'd hit a few casinos. With that boy's luck he could gain enough to make a nice sum of money for retirement, that is if he lived that long. Since it was rare for active ninjas to die of old age, well, he'd make sure it would go to Naruto then if that happened. Genma was banging his head on the table, swearing to himself about Chibi Kakashis and ringers. Pretty much after that night Naruto wasn't allowed to gamble with the Jonin unless it was when Kakashi brought in the new guys who didn't know of Naruto's talent. Over a year he would manage to squeeze a lot of cash out of his fellow ninjas before word went around of Naruto and his deadly poker skills. Hyuga Compound. Hinata was training with her cousin Niji in one of the larger training areas, or more likely he was trying to teach her. She had been learning a bit with him. She couldn't help but notice just how much better he was than her. She was breathing hard as she had been pushing herself as hard as she could. She had seen Naruto-kun train and he never gave up. She also wanted Naruto to notice her a bit more, but she wasn't sure why. She liked him, but why was it that she got so nervous around him? Sure, she got nervous with everyone, but with him she felt more nervous. He also made her happy and safe. Ever since that night he saved her, Naruto had been something very special to her. She also felt weak and she hated being scared. She wanted to be strong and fearless like Naruto seemed to be. She got back into her fighting stance as Niji got into his as he watched her throw the first few strikes. He dodged them and countered with his own hands. He couldn't seal the chakra points, but he didn't want to do that anyway. He had noticed how his cousin had been training herself very hard lately. They continued on until Hinata looked like she was struggling to still stand. He stepped away and dropped his hands. Niji Naizen? Hinata asked. Niji was still getting used to her calling him that, although he still felt that he had to use a respectful tone with her. At least in the compound outside, out of earshot of others, he could be a bit more relaxed around her. I think we should take a break, Hinata-san. Why don't we have a drink? He motioned over to the deck where they had some water. Hinata wanted to argue that as if it was in her, but she just nodded and went over and sat down, taking some of the cool water. Niji looked at her and was wondering what was going on with his cousin lately. Hinata-san, why are you pushing yourself so hard? Hinata jumped a bit in surprise and started to fiddle with her fingers as she looked down at the ground. I need to be stronger. If I want to be a ninja, then I can't be weak. Niji nodded his head, thinking he was seeing where this was going. He knew that she had lots of confidence problems. After all, she was the eldest daughter of her uncle and would one day lead the clan. That was a lot of weight to put onto the shoulders of a little girl. He thought back to something his father had told him. It had been a week after Hinata's failed rescue, as he had been training very hard. He had been upset that someone had tried to take not only one of the CLN but his own cousin. It was only thanks to Naruto that she had been saved, and he had ended up in the hospital because of it. He honestly was starting to like Naruto. He was odd, loud, and came off as an idiot at times, but he was totally loyal to Hinata and his friends. He never gave up or backed down, and he had a determination in him that was harder than steel. It was those qualities that made Niji see what Naruto was like, and so he pushed himself to new heights. Niji, my son, come here. He turned to see his father and stopped what he was doing and looked up at his father. He was smiling down at his son and placed a hand on his shoulder. Niji, my son, I think you have much potential, maybe even the most potential that has ever been shown in many generations. Thank you, father, the young boy beamed up at him. I want to be the strongest there is. And why do you want to do that? His father asked. Most of the main family looks down at us. I want to show them that the branch members aren't the weakest, that we can be just as good. His father smiled at his son. That is a nice reason, my son, but it's not a good one. Son, let me tell you how you can become truly strong. Hinata-san, I respect that you want to get stronger, but you should get strong for the right reasons, he told her, and she looked at him with confusion. My father said that people get strong for many reasons, but the best reason is to get strong for others, to protect them like the branch family protects the main family. If you want to be strong, you should do so for the right reasons, so who do you want to gain strength to protect? Hinata was taken aback by that and thought about it, and soon a blush reached her cheeks. She played with her index fingers again as she thought about a boy she wanted to be strong to protect, and that was Naruto. He had nearly died because of her, and she didn't want him to do that again. She wanted to be able to protect him like she had. Niji smirked seeing his younger cousin act like this and got an idea of who she was thinking of. I'm sure he's someone that is worth getting strong for. Hinata made a small eep sound as she actually managed to blush even deeper. She tried to say something but it took her a while to be able to speak. Who are you getting SS strong for? Niji gave her a small smile as he got up. He walked off a few steps before stopping and looked over his shoulder at her. My family, and I mean all of my family. Hinata got the full meaning of those words and knew that he meant her as well. She felt happy at that and gave him one of her warm heartfelt smiles. She felt she had enough for the day and wanted to see if she had any homework left. As she walked on her way to her room, she saw her mother go into her little sister's room. Lately she had been very worried for her mother. She hadn't been herself for a long time now. Hinata moved to the doorway and watched her mother put her younger sister in her crib and sit down on a rocking chair. She looked at her mother and she seemed so tired. Hinata walked up to her mother nervously. Mother, is something wrong with you? She looked down at her precious daughter and stroked her face lovingly. I'm just sick, dear. SS sick? Hinata asked, worried. She gave her a small smile. It's okay, I'm getting medicine and seeing a doctor, so try not to worry, alright? Hinata nodded her head, but she couldn't help but feel something was very wrong with this. Her mother was pale and she was tired a lot lately. She was eating less and she couldn't tell if her mother had lost weight because of the robes that the clan favored. Hana reached down and picked up her child, seeing how worried she was, and held her close. Hinata just held her mother tightly as her mother hugged her. Hana had been seeing the doctors and healers and she had been taking the medicine, but she was still suffering from headaches and she couldn't even activate her eyes anymore because it hurt so much. She was starting to get very worried, but she tried not to show it. She wanted to beat this. She wanted to see her daughters grow up and see what kind of women they would turn into. She even wanted to live long enough to have another child if possible, but the fear that her time was growing shorter was always there. She still had hope, at least, that the next few treatments would send it into remission and give her more time, but until then she just had to hope, and she wanted to live her life with her family. Her precious children meant so much and she didn't want to leave Hinata, and have Hanabi grow up without a mother, and to leave her husband alone. She was happy with her life and would fight with every fiber in her being to stay here. She felt Hinata's body against hers and felt the sting of tears in her eyes. Her daughter had such a good heart and she wanted to see it grow. She knew that her daughter was something special. She had a quality that she had seen in only one other little boy. She smiled at the thought of Naruto and how Hinata seemed to idolize him, and was on her way to a crush as well. She wanted to see what would happen with them and see if she could give her daughter advice on boys when the time was right, to do all the things that mothers and their daughters did. She wanted to do all of that and so much more. I will not give up, I have to go on for my family. She thought strongly to herself, hugging her precious daughter. Chapter 16, A Princess Pain. Hana Hyuga was sitting in the garden taking a rest. She did that a lot these days, it seemed. She had been going in for treatments, but she wasn't getting any better. In fact, she was just getting weaker, and some days she couldn't even get out of bed because of the pain she was in was too much for her at times. She tried to put on a brave front along with her husband, but she knew that even Hinata knew something was wrong. The doctors had told her that her condition had worsened and that taking her eyes was no longer an option. It had run too far too fast in her and was now attacking her brain. But today was one of her better days. They were looking for a new healer from outside the village who might be able to help her. She didn't want to just give up and die. She wanted to stay with her family. She watched the flowers blowing in the soft wind and she could see how beautiful the day was. It was one of the things she loved about this village. There was just this timeless beauty to it all. Hana-sama. She turned to see one of the branch members bowing slightly to her. It is time for the meeting now. Yes, I'll be right there. She stood up and walked there, making sure that any sign of her weakness wasn't showing. She was a proud Hyuga and wouldn't look weak in front of others, and besides she was the matriarch of the clan and she couldn't be seen as weak. But it wasn't easy, even though her husband had asked her to take a few days rest now and then, but she didn't like being in a bed all day. She couldn't stand that. She was just walking when she felt another stab of pain in her head, but this time it was much worse. She felt sick to her stomach and her nerves were on fire. She only made a choking sound before she fell to the ground. The Hyuga member was scared to death at this and ran to her, calling her name. When he put her onto her back, he noticed a trail of blood coming out of her nose and ears. She wasn't waking up and he yelled out for help. Across the village in the Ninja Academy, Hinata was spacing off as Iruka was going through a lecture on concealment. She had been having trouble focusing lately and she didn't know what to do. This thing with her mother was scaring her. Her mother kept saying that she would get better, but she didn't seem to be. In fact, she only seemed to be getting worse. She was scared and didn't know what to do. It didn't go unnoticed as well among her friends, as they saw the change in her as well. Normally she was just the shy girl, but now she was practically withdrawn most of the time. It was really worrying for them to see her like this. Naruto had even tried to cheer her up with his usual attitude and threw in a few pranks, but she never once reacted. Of course, everyone else did, and he got his usual detention after school, but he was still worried about her. He had talked to his dad and he didn't know much about what was going on either. Naruto had talked with his close circle of friends and no one seemed to know other than she was worried about her mother. Ino's mother heard that Hinata's mother wasn't feeling well lately and no one could remember the last time she had come to the school to pick her up. Usually, it was her father or her uncle. So, they would watch and see if they could try and be helpful for her. Naruto, however, wanted to know firsthand what the problem was. After all, Hana Hyuga was one of the first adults that he had made friends with, and he was worried too if she was sick. He waited for the last bell to ring as he packed away his school stuff and saw her slowly walking to the door. Naruto, you think that Hinata will be okay? He turned to see Ino there with Sakura looking just as worried. I don't know, but I intend to find out for sure what's going on, Ino. He told them and both girls nodded, wishing him luck. They knew how close the two were. Naruto managed to catch up with Hinata as she was waiting for someone from her family and he walked up next to her. Hinata-chan, what's wrong? You've not been yourself for a while and it's starting to worry everyone. She blushed a bit and she looked at the ground. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to worry everyone. I'm just worried for my mother. She then felt a warm hand grab hers and she gasped, looking at him in surprise as she stared into his blue emotional eyes, and she felt the warmth and comfort coming from them. She gave a small smile as she felt his strength reaching out to her. Hinata-sama, a familiar voice said to her. They looked to see Niji there, but there was something wrong. His face was gray and there was just something about him that said there was something really wrong going on. And Niji-nichan. Niji looked crestfallen as he spoke the words to her. Hinata, there's something happened to Hana-sama. It was then that Naruto felt Hinata grip his hand tightly and he squeezed it back, letting her know that she wasn't alone. Hyuga compound. Hinata ran into the compound hearing about her mother. Thankfully Naruto was there with her as she wasn't sure if she could have made it back on her own. The sky was getting dark and she wanted to know where her mother was. Finally, she saw her uncle there and ran over to him. Uncle Hisashi. He knelt down to the young girl as she came running up with tears in her eyes. He noticed his son and Naruto with her both had on looks that wanted to know what was going on. He sighed as he placed a hand on her shoulder, seeing her nearly break out into sobs. What's wrong with mother? She asked him. Hinata, as you know, she's been very sick lately and it looks like it's been getting worse. Your mother didn't want you to worry and she put on a brave face. She wanted to fight this and hope that she could beat it, but she's going to be okay though, right? She'll get better. Naruto asked him, and Hisashi couldn't lie to them. They were all going to be ninja one day and they needed to face the reality that people died. He just wished it wasn't such a harsh lesson on them, especially his niece, who was the kindest person he had known in his life. Looking at her face broke his heart inside and he sadly shook his head. Hinata broke down into sobs as her uncle cradled her against him. Inside one of the rooms of the mansion, Hayashi was with his wife, who was sleeping now as the healer had given her something to take away the pain she had been feeling. He looked down at his wife. She was so very pale and so very weak. They had both been hoping that they could have beaten this, but the healer didn't look like he could do anything. I'm sorry, Hayashi-sama, but it's gone too far. I'm afraid that the disease has just spread too far, too fast. There is nothing more we can do other than make her comfortable. Hayashi didn't want to admit that his wife was dying. There had to be something that could be done, something that could save his wife. But he knew they had tried everything they could think of. They tried looking for specialists in this, but the few they were able to find hadn't been able to do anything. Bloodline poisoning was a rare disease and so little research had been done into it. Plus it was devastation. Sometimes it wasn't caught in time, so there had been deaths that until after an autopsy revealed what had caused the death. He walked over to her and stroked her long hair lovingly. How much longer? I'm sorry, but it's in the final stages. She may or may not last the night. Hayashi nodded his head, closing his eyes, and told him to leave. When the man was gone, that's when he lost all the strength in his legs and he fell down next to her. He never cried in public, but for the first time in years he felt the sting of tears on his face. He held her hand and kissed it, knowing that this was the last night he would have with the woman that was the love of his life, the bright spot of his soul, the only woman he had and would ever love. She was everything to him, and the mother of his precious daughters, and he couldn't bear to lose her. It felt like someone was ripping his insides out, like he was falling and the end was not in sight. He didn't know how long he knelt there until he felt a hand gripping his own and he looked up into his wife's face. "Please my love, I don't want to see you like this," she told him. "I can't help it, the healers." He couldn't even finish the sentence. "How long?" she asked him, knowing full well what was happening to her. It was strange. She had known she had been dying for months, and yet here she was on death's door and she was strangely calm about it all. Maybe it was because she could finally stop fighting, she could finally just stop and rest. She was so very tired of fighting this. She was tired of the near constant pain, the tiredness, and the worry of what would happen to her and her family. Now she didn't have to fight anymore, and she knew her family would be in pain, but it would endure. They were strong and she knew that they would live on, and it wasn't like she had a bad life. She found love and had 2 beautiful daughters. She just wished she just had a little more time. She wanted to see Hanabi take her first steps, to see her girl's first crush, first date, first heartbreak, first time she caught them doing something inappropriate with a boy like her own mother had with her. She wanted to see them fall in love, she wanted to see them get married and to see grandchildren that she could spoil rotten. She wanted to be with her husband through all of this, to calm him down the first time the girls would bring a boy home. There was just so much, but now there was just no more time for it. "Please Hayashi-kun, I want to see my family. I want to see them one last time before the end." He nodded his head and kissed her lips, and she kissed them back. It would be their last kiss, and she felt so sad at that. She wanted to say so much to him, and yet there were only a few words that could say what she felt for him. "I love you so much, you made me happy and I'm glad that I had you in my life. I love you just as much, Hana-chan, and I'll love you forever," he told her as he caressed her flawless face, burning the feeling of it into his mind. He went to get the others and gather them. He found that Naruto was with his daughter and had thought of telling the boy to go back home, but seeing how he was comforting his daughter, maybe it was alright to let him stay. After all, in a way he had become family to the Hyagas. He had befriended both Hinata and Niji, and he knew that despite his attitude and those pranks of his, he had a good heart. He turned to see his brother there and he asked him to get Hanabi from the nanny that was looking after his youngest daughter. It was time to gather up the family for a final farewell. Hinata came in, seeing her mother propped up on her bed holding her baby sister. She looked so pale and weak, and she was glad that she was holding Naruto's hand. She needed him here for this as she walked over to her bedside, seeing her entire family in the room. Hana looked over at her oldest daughter and smiled at the sight of her holding the boy's hand. It was so cute and she was happy to see it, for one of the last things she wanted to see was that her daughter would be cared for. "Hinata, come closer." Yes mother," Hinata said, trying not to break down again. Hana reached out and caressed her daughter's face and smiled at her. "I'm so sorry that I won't see the beautiful woman that you'll grow into, Hinata my dear. I'm sorry that I won't see Hanabi either, and I'm so sorry that I have to leave you all." "No. I don't want you to go, mother." Hinata cried out, clutching her mother's arm. "I don't want to either, dear, but my time is nearly up and I wanted to spend my last moments with the people I love the most. I tried to stay strong and to keep myself alive. I never gave up, but I guess I wasn't strong enough. Hinata, just know that I'll always love you and your sister and that I'll always be watching." Hinata just nodded her head, crying her heart out, and Hana looked over to Naruto, seeing the red eyes the boy had from his own tears. She smiled at the boy with the mask on, and she remembered that first day when a curious child with whisker marks on his face came up and asked who her daughter was, who had been hiding behind her legs. They had been good friends for one another, and Naruto had always been there for her daughter. "Naruto-kun," Hana said to him. Yes Hana-san." Naruto said to her it was the few times he ever used the term san with someone and meant it. "Please look after Hinata for me, watch over her while I can't be here physically. Be there for her and always be someone she can depend on," she asked this child. Naruto nodded. "I promise, and I never break my promises." "I know, that's why I asked," Hana said with a small smile. The night was a cold one. there was no moon in the sky as it was blocked by clouds, and they were there to help make Hana more comfortable. Hana talked to her family and she didn't look sad. She didn't want their last memory of her being sad. But then she was feeling so tired, she wanted to rest. She just wanted to rest a bit before the end. "I'm so tired," she said weakly. "I know you are," Hayashi said, trying to not choke on a sob that he was holding back, and held her hand. "Rest now, my love. I always loved you, my husband. Look after our family. I'm happy to have had a family like this. I love you also, very." She closed her eyes and she looked like she was falling asleep. Hayashi with a shaking hand felt for his wife's pulse. There it was, but it was weakening. It was slowing down more and more, and then finally it stopped. He waited for a minute, but the life was gone. He used his Byakugan and he saw the fading light of her chakra. He watched as it slowly dimmed to nothing. Then he deactivated his eyes and hung his head as his wife was dead. Hanabi suddenly broke out crying in her uncle's arms, almost as if she could sense that her mother was dead. Hinata felt her eyes water up, and when Niji tried to put a hand on her shoulder she turned and ran. "Hinata!" Naruto called after her. Watching her go, he turned to see Hinata's father fall gently to his knees holding his dead wife's hand. Hisashi looked at the two boys. "Go and find her," he said to them gently, and they nodded and ran off. He walked over to his brother and knew the pain he was going through. When he lost his wife, it had nearly devastated him as well. He would let his brother grieve for his wife and then he would help him deal with her loss. He had helped him when his own wife had died, and now it seemed fate was switching the positions. He walked out of the room to help and put Hanabi down for bed and maybe see if he could make the child less upset. Naruto ran through the night looking for Hinata. He tried the playground first, but she wasn't there, and then he tried the ramen stand, the school, and anywhere else he could think of. He wanted to find her and he wanted to make sure she was safe. He was still trying to process that Hinata's mother was dead. It just didn't seem real to him. She had been one of the adults that always had been nice to him, and she was everything that he figured a mother should be. Sometimes he was envious that Hinata had a mom like that, but now she was gone. He felt his tears sting his eyes, feeling like someone had ripped something out of him. He hated this feeling, but he had to search for Hinata. Then he remembered one of the areas they played together since they were younger. It was an open area in a forested part of the village. His dad took him there to train, sometimes for teaching him wilderness stuff, although to Naruto it had been more like camping with his dad. He had showed Hinata that once, and he made a promise to her that they would camp out there one day. He ran to that place and his lungs were burning and he stopped scanning the darkness. He thought that he had guessed wrong and was about to move on when sobbing noises got his attention. He followed them around a tree, and there, huddled there, was Hinata crying. He hated seeing Hinata cry. He felt like crying himself, and he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He pulled down his mask for her to see his face. He bent down next to her and gently touched her shoulder. "Hinata-chan." Hinata jumped at the touch and turned to see who it was. She slowly saw in the moonlight that it was a boy, but then it took her a moment to know who it was. It was Naruto, but without his mask. She hadn't seen his face in over a year and she had missed it. She missed seeing his smiles and those whisker marks on his face. His blue eyes, which usually were full of energy and happiness, were filled with sadness. She tried to speak, but her throat had a huge lump in it, and she just lunged herself into Naruto, burying her face into his chest. Naruto was shocked by her sudden movement, but hearing her cry like this was tearing him up inside. He just held her close, trying to comfort her, but he felt his own tears falling as well. He cried for her pain, the pain of her family, and for his own pain at having one of the precious people in his life taken away. They just held each other as they cried on each other, trying to find comfort with each other. "WWY?" She sobbed into his chest, clutching at his clothing with her fist. "I don't know," he said softly, choking back his tears, holding her tightly to him. "Why my mother?" she asked again. "I wish I knew Hinata-chan, she was the best mother I knew," he told her as she was shaking a lot from her crying. "I know this, I wish I had a mother like that. I never knew my mother, but there were times that I wished I had Hana-san as a mother. You were so lucky to have a mother like her." Hinata buried herself even more into Naruto. His warm body helped to keep the cold she was feeling away, and it wasn't just the cold of the night but from the death of her own mother that was affecting her. She didn't want to let go of Naruto. She felt safe in his arms. She felt like he could help keep the pain from swallowing her whole. She felt his hand stroking her hair and her back and she cried herself into exhaustion. Naruto heard that she had stopped and looked down to see that she wasn't awake anymore. He pulled on his mask and hoisted her onto his back as he started to carry her all the way back to her home. It was long and hard since he wasn't used to having all that weight on his back, but he endured. He wanted to see her home, and when he got to the gates the guards let him in immediately as they went to send word to stop looking for her. Naruto found Neji, who had on a sad look in his eyes. They looked at one another, not sure what they could say in a moment like this. "Can you help me put her to bed?" Naruto asked him. He nodded his head as he led the way without a word. They got to her room and Neji pulled back the covers as Naruto placed her in there. They took off her shoes and covered her up. Either one knew what they could do for her. Although Naruto didn't want to go home, he didn't want to leave her alone. Thankfully his father came to find him, and when he learned of everything, they both stayed to look after her for the night. Hinata's father had not been seen. He had been too wrapped up in his own pain to function in public for the moment. His brother was standing guard over his room with a grim look on his face. The loss of Hana would hit the clan hard, but it hit family the hardest. She had always treated him and Neji well and he respected her. To lose your wife was the greatest pain a husband could endure, just as he knew his twin was enduring this dark night. The next day and for the rest of the week Hinata and Naruto didn't come to school. Their friends found out by the end of the day why when Iruka told the class about Hinata's mother. Those that knew Hinata felt horrible for the girl. Someone was asked to bring the school work to Naruto and Hinata so they didn't fall behind, and Ino and Sakura were the first to do it. Everyone went to visit Hinata the next day and they found her with Naruto as he was helping her through it all. They had never seen Hinata look like that in their lives, and the image would be burned into their memories. They were there for her, and even though she didn't show it, she was thankful for the support of her friends. Naruto refused to leave her side for long periods of time. For the first few days he actually stayed with the Hyagas in a spare room as Hinata had trouble sleeping. He would always be there for her and she would use him to cry on. After the funeral Hinata was in a deep depression. Neji knew what it was like to lose a mother at a young age. Himself was a very strong comfort for his cousin as he knew his father was helping Hinata's father as well. That whole year was tough all around on Hinata, and her friends kept by her side, and Naruto most of all was always there for her. It took time, but Hinata finally did smile again and laughed again, but the pain would always be there for her. Naruto could see when she was starting to feel that pain and would do everything to cheer her up. But by the end of the first year in school Hinata had managed to cope with her mother's death and was thankful for having so many people there for her. Next up, chapter 17, as the years go by. The last few years had its ups and downs. Naruto of course was doing well in school, and although he was doing great at the physical skills of a ninja, Sasuke beat him out of the scholastic scores. Over the years they had formed a strong rivalry, always trying to outdo the other in everything. He had to admit though one of these favorite moments had been when Sasuke had been a bit too annoying. Naruto tried out a technique his father taught him. Mainly you pulled someone under the ground so just their head was left. Naruto knew this one well since his own father pulled it on him during sparring matches from time to time, and he hated that move. But he had to admit pulling it on someone else was sure worth it. Sasuke had been livid as he tried to get out of the ground, and just to add insult to injury, he had also taken one of his father's books. He still remembered that day with Sasuke glaring at him and Kiba on the ground holding his sides. "Oh man, this is great!" Kiba roared as his very own dog Akamaru that he had gained last year. His family had finally thought it was time for him to get his own dog, and he loved that day when on his birthday no less he had been given his own puppy. The two were inseparable and the small white dog was barking as well. Shikamaru had to admit it was pretty funny, and so did Koji. Thankfully it was just the guys at the moment as well. "Hey Take, you better get me out of this or so help me I'll kick your masked ass," Sasuke said at him. And here I was going to read you a story," Naruto said sitting down and pulled out one of his father's books. "Hey, what's that?" Kiba asked. Naruto grinned under his mask. "Just something of my dad's, now let's see. Oh, here's a good part." Naruto read on, and he had to admit seeing Sasuke turn bright red from embarrassment was hilarious. Koji had actually stopped eating and looked frozen. Shikamaru was trying to stare up at the clouds with a blush on his face. Kiba however was on the verge of a nosebleed but wanted to hear more. Naruto was thankful for the mask as well. "Naruto, what are you doing?" They turned to see Ino and a few of the other girls walking towards him looking a bit pissed. Just reading a story to Sasuke and I think he likes it. Naruto grinned. No, I don't, you idiot, and get me out of here already. Sasuke said, still all red from what Naruto had read to him. He had never thought those kinds of things before and he was seriously getting pissed off at still being stuck in the ground. Naruto, get Sasuke-kun out of there right this minute. Ino demanded at him. Fine, but finish the story for the guys, will you? Naruto handed her the book and she looked at it, curious as to what it was. Sakura and Hinata were also there and looked over the blood's shoulder and started to read over her shoulder. All three girls had to admit it looked like some kind of love story, something to do with some type of forbidden love of two members of opposing clans. It was very romantic how the two characters were admitting their love for the other, then they kissed, then kissed some more, and didn't stop. The girls got very red in the face and Hinata actually fainted at that point. Thankfully Sakura caught the girl as she was as red as her dress. Ino suddenly dropped the book like it was poison. Hey, careful, that's one of my dad's books, Naruto said, hauling Sasuke free. Ino marched right over to him and looked at him. Naruto saw the fury in her eyes and tried to say something in his defense but never got the chance to open his mouth as Ino slammed her fist into his face. You perverted hentai. The girls didn't talk to him for a week after that, although Hinata tried to talk, but the images in her young mind kept making her faint when the subject came up, plus she couldn't look Naruto in the eyes after that. Although even she had to admit Naruto had the beating from Ino coming to him for that, although she did forgive him first out of the girls, Sakura lasted another week giving him the silent treatment until he apologized for the 100th time. As for Ino, well, he had to promise to help out with her chores at the flower shop for a week straight. That wasn't the last thing either. Naruto had discovered by his 12th year in life girls, women, and just how good they looked. It didn't help that when Kakashi tried to teach Naruto about the birds and the bees, he read his Ika Ika book to him. Although Naruto now knew more about sex than he ever wanted to know, although he personally didn't understand a few things like if it was really possible for a threesome to work in real life. When he was learning the hedge technique, he had been trying to find a way to beat his father in their sparring and an idea formed. It took weeks of practice but he finally got it down. The next time they sparred he unleashed one of his ultimate secret justice, the sexy jutsu. Kakashi had been so shocked to see a young teen and very cute and beautiful naked girl with such an irresistible pout on her face he didn't have time to recover when the hedge dropped and Naruto scored his first solid hit on his father. Kakashi looked up from his spot, not sure to be proud of his son's inventive nature or he should wonder where he came up with that idea. He got up and dusted himself off and looked at his son, who he knew was grinning under that mask of his. He looked at him for a moment before speaking. I'm not even going to ask Naruto, but I'd be careful about that around certain people. It's my anti-pervert move, Dad, it works great on them. His son laughed. How do you know it works so well? Easy, I used it on the old man and several others and they were laid out with huge nosebleeds. It was great. Just don't use that in class. I don't need to come after school again this week, Kakashi said as he got himself ready. Okay, so now you got two choices, son. You either can do the 3 climbing exercise to improve your chakra control or sword fighting training. Naruto wasn't sure what was worse. The tree climbing he learned 6 months ago and it took him forever to get that down and it was boring. Although he did admit it did work really well, but although the sword training was a lot more fun, he usually ended up with lots of bumps and bruises. He ended up with the sword training he could heal quickly after all, so he didn't mind. Kakashi grinned under his mask as he was hoping for that. Now he could get him back for using that new technique on him. After a few hours Naruto managed to end his training for the day and ended up walking around the village. He was still feeling some of the blows his dad had given him and was wondering if that was bordering on child abuse with the training at times. He was grumbling about his father not being able to take a joke and was wondering what he could do today. He knew that Kiba and Shino would be busy working with their families today. Ino and Sakura were most likely training today as well, and those two could be scary when they got into competitions. Hinata was getting some training with her father and little sister as well. Naruto thought about his best friend and was glad that she was back to her old self, although he missed Hana Hyuga when he visited the Hyuga home. Hinata's father was a bit more stern after that, but thankfully it seemed his brother was able to help curve that a little. Then he thought of Niji and a smile broke out under his mask. He had graduated last year and was put on a team of all people his uncle Guy. He laughed his ass off when Niji told him that. He actually felt a bit sorry for Niji. He knew that Guy could get a little overboard with training, but he was interested in meeting the team. There was this kid Lee that sounded nice, and a girl Tenten as well. He hadn't seen his uncle Guy and Niji in a long time too, with the missions they went on. He knew where they trained, and he decided to take a little look to see what this team was like. Team Guy Training Grounds. In the field that Team Guy used, their sensei was currently teaching Lee some more taijutsu moves while Tenten was sparring with Niji, and he had to admit he liked this team. Sure, they were a bit unorthodox, but then again, knowing Guy beforehand helped to adjust faster. That is, he thought it would before him and Lee got this very close bond that led to some disturbing scenes. Although at the moment he had to concentrate, since if he wasn't, Tenten would cut him up to pieces. With his bloodline activated, he saw the incoming weapons and would step out of the way, or deflect them. She was very good. She moved with speed and agility, and with such deadly accuracy that he actually wondered if she had any Hyuga blood in her family. She always would smile and laugh as they spared, even when he tried to remain focused and passive. In a way, she reminded him of Naruto, only less hyper and not as loud. She was easy to get to know, and even though he never told anyone, he actually found her attractive but never hinted at it. He knew the risks of getting involved with a teammate and also what it would mean down the line. The seal on his forehead was an ever-constant reminder of what awaited for his own children, and he didn't think a non-Hyuga would cope with that being done to their children. He was pulled out of his thoughts as he caught someone watching from a branch. He smirked to himself a little as he reached a pause in the sparring. Tenten, can you send a Ku now 75 degrees high, and 15 to your right into that tree over there? He asked her, and he saw her confusion. We have an uninvited guest. Now she understood and quickly threw her Ku into the leaves. A scream was heard as someone fell out of the tree and landed heavily onto the ground. The training stopped for the entire team as Tenten got a good look at the boy. He looked to be about a year or so younger than her, with blonde spiky hair and wore black pants with an orange stripe on the side, an orange t-shirt over a black vest with pockets, and a black mask with 6 orange slash marks that looked like whiskers. Damn it, Niji, you told her to do that, didn't you? Naruto accused the older boy, pointing a finger at him. Oh, I didn't know you were there, Naruto. Niji said, faking innocent. Bullshit. She could have killed me. Hardly. Tenten can hit a target 100 times out of 100, give her a target and she'll never miss. Niji said to Naruto, who paused for a moment to take that in as he was impressed with it, but then went into yelling at the boy a bit more. Tenten felt her cheeks slightly heat up at Niji's compliment of her abilities. It was nice to know he thought of her skills so highly. It was then that he took a good look at the girl with Chinese puns in a pink-styled shirt. You know, Niji, you never said you had such a pretty girl on your team. Tenten actually felt a slight blush on her cheeks from the compliment. She never focused on her looks, but it was still nice for a girl to hear that from a boy now and then. Niji, however, had a slight flash of emotion on his face that Naruto caught when Niji saw the girl blush from the compliment. Oh, so Niji may finally like a girl, huh? Oh, I so have to tell Hinata this. Maybe we can have some fun and break him out of that Hyuga shell of his. Naruto grinned under his mask, seeing Niji give him a slight glare. Naruto-kun, one of my most youthful friends. Guy jumped into the scene and took one of his poses. Hey Uncle Guy, how's the training going? Naruto asked. Wait, Uncle Guy? Tenten asked. She had no idea that Guy had any other family other than his parents. Actually, Naruto is the son of my friend and rival Kakashi Hatake, but I've known Naruto-kun since he was a young boy and he thinks of me as an uncle. Guy told them. Wait, Kakashi, wasn't that the guy you lost a came to rock, paper, scissors to? Tenten asked. Naruto smiled under his mask. So what's the score? Is my dad ahead now? Kakashi may be ahead, but I will soon pull ahead of him and show him that the power of youth prevails over all, right Naruto? Guy said, and then noticed that Naruto was examining his fingernails. He looked up sharply. Huh? Oh, sorry, were you saying something, Uncle Guy? Guy face faulted at that and then jumped up. There's that hip and too cool attitude of your father. You should embrace the power of youth, Naruto. Niji just shook his head. He had seen this many times before, but still he had learned to enjoy the show when Naruto would act like Guy to get under his father's skin and then act like his father to do the same for Guy. It was also how he managed to convince the two adults into several competitions of his own choosing. He never forgot the one when they had to go from one end of the village to another balancing an egg on their noses, or the time he suggested wrestling a muddy pig. It's always the same with them, Niji sighed. Niji, how do you know this guy anyway? Tenten asked. He's friends with my cousin Hinata for years and well, he's sort of become a friend of the Hyuga clan, he explained to the weapons girl. Tenten was wondering how the kid managed to do that. It was rare for any clan to admit friendships to someone outside of the clan, and the Hyugas were no exception to that. Naruto, I want to introduce to you one of my prize pupils, this is Rock Lee. Guy said, introducing a young boy that looked almost exactly like a younger version of Guy. The boy had been waiting for the right moment to jump in and to introduce himself. I am Rock Lee and I'm honored to meet a family member of Guy Sensei. Even if you are not related by blood, I can see the fires of youth burning bright inside of you. Lee proclaimed to him and giving him his own pose with blinding smile and a thumbs up. Naruto looked at the boy for a moment before turning to Guy with a deadpan expression on his face. Uncle Guy, have you been performing illegal cloning experiments on yourself? Is he your secret love child or something, or did you turn someone normal into a copy of you? Tenten starting into fits of giggles, and Niji had a small smirk on his face with that one. Naruto, although I wish Lee was my child, sadly, he is not, but he is a true genius of hard work just like you are, Naruto. Guy told him. At that, Lee's eyes lit up with fire. Naruto, is it true that you are a genius of hard work? There are many geniuses like Niji here who are gifted with talents for being a ninja, but then there are those of hard work that Guy Sensei says work hard to surpass others. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well, that's what Uncle Guy always tells me, but I have to work hard if I want to be Hokage one day. Ah. That is a worthy dream. You truly are inspired to reach for great heights. My dream is to be a great ninja, even though I can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, but I will not let that handicap me, and I will show them all that I will be a great ninja. Wait, you can't use either? Naruto asked and learned of how Rock Lee's chakra coils were abnormally underdeveloped to the point he couldn't use them like a normal ninja. He listened, and yet this boy trained his heart out in taijutsu, and knowing Guy, he was training hard. Well, I guess then we have something in common then. I have abnormally large chakra reserves, or so my dad says, and he says that it also causes me to have the worst chakra control he's seen. It's hard for me to do the simple things because of all the chakra in my body. I still can't do a simple clone yet, and it took me forever to learn the other things. But I work hard to overcome that, and I will reach my dream of being Hokage. Tenten sighed. Great, now we got another one. I wouldn't dismiss Naruto just yet, he's not your normal or average ninja, Niji said to her, and she looked at him surprised. You see, when he was a small boy, he managed to save my cousin from a kidnapping attempt and gravely injure a ninja. He also took a kunai to the chest and lived. Tenten's eyes widened at that and looked at the boy who was being challenged to a spar by Lee and who seemed excited for it as well. She was trying to figure out the puzzle that was Naruto Hatake, and she and Niji watched as Lee got into his usual fighting pose and Naruto got into one fighting poses that his father taught him. Guy, of course, was being the referee at this point, and he called the match a go. Naruto leapt out first as Lee stood his ground. Naruto threw a punch only to have it intercepted, so he twisted with a kick and Lee jumped back. Naruto didn't stop though, he had to keep Lee moving and guessing as he tried to see what kind of fighter he was. Thanks to some training from Guy himself, he knew a bit of the style that Lee was using, but obviously Lee was knowing a lot more about it than he was. There was also something that caught his attention as they fought, and that was that Lee was really, really fast. He was definitely faster than he was, and when he felt a blow land there was some serious power to it. Naruto took a hit to his shoulder and went with a roll to take the shot and jumped back up facing Lee. It was times like this he wished he knew some offensive justice, but all he had was the training things like tree climbing and the academy stuff, with the exception of clones. Tenten and Niji watched with interest as Naruto took the pounding by Lee but just kept on going. In fact, Naruto managed to get Lee with an elbow strike to the ribs at one point when Lee left an opening for Naruto. Niji watched knowing that Naruto trained a lot and with different teachers. He could see the influence in his fighting style, which was a mix of various moves from Kakashi, Guy's own style, and what he assumed was from that woman Anko who really gave Niji the creeps. Tenten was impressed that a boy still in the academy was holding out so long against Lee. She had to admit the blonde certainly was giving Lee a workout, and she noticed that as the battle went on, Naruto seemed to find more and more weaknesses in Lee's style. It wasn't much to give him an edge, but it did allow Naruto to dodge and get out of the way of the more powerful moves now and again. Man, how come you're so fast, Lee? I mean, I train a lot but I'm not that fast, Naruto said, ducking a whirlwind kick to his head. Guy-sensei has me on a special training regimen that increases my speed and strength. Lee said, dodging a few aerial kicks by Naruto. Hey Uncle Guy, how come you never tried that with me? Naruto asked him while fighting. Guy smiled and chuckled a bit. I did, but your father thought it was too much. Oh, how so? Ow. What the hell? Naruto had gone for a block with a kick from Lee by kicking the boy's shin, but instead of flesh and bone there seemed to be something else covered by the orange leg warmers. Naruto was hoping on one foot, holding his shin, cursing as Lee stopped in respect. I'm sorry Naruto, I didn't mean for you to hit my leg weights. Leg weights? What kind of leg weights do you have on? Naruto asked, rubbing his shin. Lee looked to Guy and the man nodded his head, and so Lee pulled up the leg warmers and Naruto's jaw dropped. There was a huge set of weights hidden there, actual bricks of metal, and Naruto was thankful he didn't break his leg on it. Then another thought hit him as he saw the weights. In order to move as fast as he was without those weights, he would destroy him within seconds. For the first time Naruto had met someone that was way above him, at least in speed and strength, that he would need to surpass. He made a mental note to talk to his father about weights for himself, although he didn't think he could handle those, at least not yet. Shall we stop for now, Naruto-kun? Lee asked him, although he was enjoying the fight. Naruto fought with such passion and intensity. It was very different from how Neji fought, always so controlled and centered. If Neji was a mountain, then Naruto was like the wind, and he had seen how Naruto refused to give up at all and only came back with more force and determination. He truly was a genius of hard work, and he wanted to see how much more Naruto could put into his fight. Naruto tested his leg and got back into his stance. Are you kidding? I'm only warming up, I'll just have to remember not to hit that part of your leg again. With that, both boys smiled and started their sparring match again under the watchful eye of the Guy, Tenten, and Neji. Naruto tried every move he could think of, but so far nothing he had seemed to be able to put the other boy down. At one point he managed to duck, then roll under the older boy, and with a kick to the ground launched himself behind Lee, but Lee was prepared and grabbed Naruto's wrist and arm and flung him into the nearby trees. When Naruto was thrown into a tree, he thankfully had landed feet first and stuck there. He was glad all those months of practice and training with the tree climbing managed to stick him finally. He jumped off when Lee's fist made contact with the spot he had been at, shattering the wood. He flipped into the air and with a midair twist landed facing Lee. How the hell am I going to beat this guy? He's like a mini guy, and it's not like my dad has given me any justice that I can use on him. Hell, I only know of a couple and they wouldn't work on Lee. Damn it, Dad, why the hell couldn't you have taught me a fire one like Sasuke has? The only thing I have left is... Naruto suddenly got a brilliant idea into his head and went into a familiar hand sign. Neji saw this and he groaned and covered his face with his hand. He had seen this before and he didn't need to be reminded of it. Oh no, please, not that stupid thing. What's he going to do? Tenten asked him. She watched, and then Naruto yelled out a name that she thought was Sexy Jutsu, but she swore she heard wrong. Then there was a puff of smoke and suddenly a very cute naked girl in smoke suddenly appeared. Lee froze in his spot as his young and innocent mind saw his first naked girl. He literally couldn't even think as his mind just stopped at the image. Guy yelled out in horror at the sight of it, and Tenten looked mortified. Everything she had thought about the young boy was suddenly dashed at this blatant perverted act. She held onto her kunai very hard and was trying not to throw it at the boy. Naruto dispelled it and quickly sent a jab into Lee's chin, making the boy fall onto the ground with a stupid look on his face. Well, Naruto knew it was a cheap shot, but he honestly didn't know any other way to beat the older boy. He went over to make sure there were no hard feelings, but the boy just didn't respond to him. He prodded him with his foot and still Lee was there on the ground with that stupid look on his face. Oh, I think I broke him. Hey man, you, okay? He picked him up by the shoulders, shaking him. Naruto. From that loud and deadly tone from Tenten, he dropped Lee and slowly looked around to see a very pissed off girl. She was suddenly having a small twitch in her left eye. What the hell kind of jutsu was that? Do you know how perverted and also how offensive that is to female ninjas? No, not really, Naruto said and quickly dodged a kunai being thrown at him. Thankfully Anko gave him plenty of practice with avoiding. Wait, let me explain. Will you stop throwing those? Come on Tenten, it was just a joke. Hey, that one nearly hit. How many weapons do you have on you anyway? Die, you pervert. Neji signed as he looked at Guy was trying to snap Lee out of his catatonic state and at Tenten trying to kill Naruto. He looked to the ground as his shoulders slumped. This was why I didn't want to introduce Naruto to my team, he's nothing but pure chaos. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.